Welcome back to the BDGE Dynasty Fantasy Football Channel. I am Nicholas. We have Adam and Andrew aside from me, just in succinct, perfect. We're like a diving team right now, diving into this content. We are playing a little buy, sell, hold today. You guys really like this one, so we're going to continue down the path. We've basically each brought a few players that we want to discuss, whether they are buys, sells, or hold. So we have two whiteboards. One person, myself, will start it off, will nominate a player. They will write down buy, sell, hold as they see it in Dynasty. Based on their value, we'll probably be going off of keep, trade, cut. Maybe we'll rip into some South Harmon startup value. Y'all ready to get right into it?
Let's rip.
Get right into the sheets. Okay, so first player I am nominating is the Detroit Lions running back, David Montgomery.
All right.
He is the RB21, which was surprising to me, but he is pick 115 overall. So the gap there in terms of like, okay, he's a top 20-ish running back, but where he's getting drafted is probably around where like the wide receiver 45, 50 is going in startup draft. So talking about DeMont, pair with Gibbs, 115 is around pick.
I was going to say, I was trying to math, that's 9th round, no?
Yeah, I think that's like mid to end of the 9th round. So you're almost talking about double-digit rounds for David Montgomery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in a startup right now. I just passed on him for Najee in the 10th.
10th round.
10th round.
Okay. What we got, big girls?
He's a coward.
Flip them and rip them.
I'm holding.
Of course you are.
We're buying.
Hold these
We're
nuts.
buying.
That's insane. Yeah, I'm holding because I just feel like it's appropriate value. I mean, I think the emergence of Gibbs in the back half of the season last year, I feel like, and obviously this is just how I feel as somebody watching, you see that happen, and why would you not give Jahmyr Gibbs, the guy that you drafted 12th overall, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was 12th overall?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you give him more opportunity in year 2 now? A lot of what David Montgomery was doing for us in our dynasty teams last year was off of his insane touchdown numbers. Those touchdowns probably see a tiny bit of regression maybe, but yeah, I'm holding him right now. I don't think he's a sell. I think he's a value where he's at, but I'm not buying.
You're uninspired by
yeah,
David Montgomery.
It just
right
feels
now.
right. It feels right where he's at.
I mean, to me, it's like the reason I say buy is because I also think he's going at like running back 24, 23, whatever, but I think a lot more of the sentiment of the community is what you just said, which means he's probably to be had for a very reasonable price. If I'm going to try to buy a running back right now, there's not many that fit the bill. It's like, do you want to actually go pay up for Gibbs, for Brees, those guys? No. Do I want to pay, honestly, like a Pacheco price? Do I have to pay near a first or an early second in this class? No. Like, right now, I think right at this current time, in the startup and in your rookie drafts in particular, you can trade out of these, like, seconds for legitimate pieces. Yeah. Like, there might be somebody on the board, let's say late second, early third, where I might be able to pivot straight up for David Montgomery. And I get it, to your point, like there's last year down the stretch, his snap share came down, but it's still an offense that I think is going to score a lot. And he's someone that I think I could, in a hero RB or zero RB approach, actually plug into my lineup, and I think he's had for a reasonable price. That's the reason I say buy.
Yeah, I think also I agree with that. In the sentiment of if you're doing a zero or a hero RB build, which in that startup that I just mentioned, that's the approach I'm taking is the hero RB. So being able to grab guys like David Montgomery that late in startups, 9th, 10th round, it feels like you're getting good value there. And I do agree, too, where you say the trade market, it's probably cheaper than what a startup market would be. I think we all noticed that, especially in our last buy hold video. So for me, I would probably throw a mid-second round and go get David Montgomery on any team that is contending. But in a startup price, more so what I was thinking about, that's where I'm holding him because I feel like it just feels accurate.
Yeah, and I might be taking more of a redraft mindset with this, but I'm definitely on like the buy side. This is something we discussed on yesterday's video or last week's video when we did the startup mock. David Montgomery, it feels like people are kind of thinking of him as like Jamal Williams, where it's like, all right, he had his big year with the Lions, but he's just being used in this one capacity. David Montgomery's like his first 4 years, he played really well in Chicago. Last year might have been his most efficient year as a runner. Like he has never proven to be a bad runner. He's gone over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in all 5 of his NFL seasons, including a career-high 13 rushing touchdowns last year. And the snap share did dwindle a little bit last year, but if there was no mistake about what DeMont's role was going to be, his touchdown numbers did not dwindle down the stretch last year. Like he scored, I think, 7 touchdowns in their final 8 games, including playoffs. It wasn't like he was phased out. He was phased out of the passing game. No doubt about it.
For sure.
I think that was always going to be Gibbs' role. He went over 1,000 yards just on the ground last year. In the Lions offense, great O-line, great offense. He's not going anywhere. He's still going to play the exact same role. If not for just this year, probably 2 years because the contract is 3 years if they want to keep him around. I think he's just as good of a bet to score 10 rushing touchdowns this year as pretty much anybody that you're going to find in fantasy football.
Yeah, I think, too, he's one of these, like, I'm not going to say James Conner, but I think Montgomery, after this year, if the Lions move on from him, like, I think he has a path to have crusty production for you for a couple seasons after.
That's what I mean. Like, Montgomery, I feel like gets the crusty donation, but
Exactly.
I don't think he's that. I think he's like a fucking pretty good running back.
Now, to that point, I just want to say this real quick, and then you yap, Andrew, is, to me, the crazy part that people kind of miss, outside of week 6 last year, where he got hurt and he missed week 7 and week 8.
Double-digit touches every single week.
And not just that. Like, if I'm doing the 0 RB thing, and I want to have – I'm probably not trying to beat you at running back at this point, right? I'm just trying to keep pace enough. David Montgomery has never been outside of running back 25, and he's basically always at RB2. So you get a floor.
Outside of that 1 week, he was never outside RB25.
Yeah, so you have like a RB2 floor with touchdown upside.
Yeah.
So, like, basically anyone you start in that range probably did not have he's not going to give you a 0 is what I'm trying to say.
And I like the Gibbs sentiment makes a ton of sense. It's like young guy who's like kind of getting his feet under him, saw him coming up, coming of age story as the season went on. But there's just no doubt about it. You just know Dan Campbell, and you know the type of team they want to be. And I don't think it ever gets to a point where, like, nah, we don't want to play hard-nosed football. Like, David Montgomery's that fucking guy for him right now. So I don't see the work. It wasn't like his numbers dropped off a cliff and he was getting, like, 6 carries a game down the stretch. He still relatively, like, there were games early on, obviously, where he had, like, 25, 30 carries. That's probably out of the realm of his possibilities now. Yep. But I still think he is – again, a rock-solid, like, dude that's going to finish inside the top 30 scores each week because he's probably a coin flip, if not better, to score a touchdown every single week.
What were you going to say, though?
I was going to say, I feel like even from his rookie year, it feels like David Montgomery's always had that crusty label that you've given him.
Right.
Yeah. I remember
he's 26, so, like, he's getting older, but, like, I still think he can squeeze out 3 more years. And I look at, like, Najee, and I'm like, okay, maybe Najee's a little bit better of a runner. But if I had to bet money on who scores 10 touchdowns this year, I'm going to put it on D-Mont over Najee for sure.
I remember back like in 2020 or something, like the year that David Montgomery had like a top 5 finish. Wasn't he like a top 5 running back in 2020?
He went crazy over the last 4 weeks of the season.
I remember I traded that year in a Dynasty league. I traded J.K. Dobbins, who was a rookie at the time. And people were like, man, you're getting fleeced. Like, this is such a bad trade for you. And I traded Dobbins for Montgomery, and he ended up giving me 2 like RB1 seasons in a row. And then, still giving me other stuff after that.
And he's like kind of just still doing the same thing.
He's even at that point, like when he was the RB5 or whatever it was, he was deemed as a bad player. I got a bad player back in the deal because I gave him my J.K. Dobbins.
Just because he's not fast. Like, people just look at him and they're like, you're kind of slow. You'll never last long in the league. And it's like him, the James Connors, the Joe Mixons, the Najee Harris. Like, how many times we got to beat the same drum?
I think at the time people were like, giving me crap because they were like, well, Tariq Cohen's going to take all of his stuff. Like, Tariq Cohen's the guy that's taking all the passing down work, and we don't want – Tariq Cohen was solid, though.
I mean, he could jump in the air, flip, and catch 2 footballs, which means nothing for fantasy football.
To be fair, he, like, died. He died.
Poor kid.
Crazy.
So do we switch your opinion, or you still hold?
I think he's a value, but I still
you said you're holding based on startup prices. It makes sense. I get it.
All right, Adam.
All right, let's get into the fun
stuff.
Give
me a whiteboard. Give me a marker.
I don't know about all that.
Grow up. At some point, you got to grow up. The beard ain't doing it for you.
The
age of how quickly your fucking beard grows.
My beard is thicker than both of these gentlemen's at this point. We just shaved it. And this man's wearing a...
And we're both more mature
What is this outfit that he's wearing telling me I need to grow up?
It means you need to be quiet before I do something.
Let's talk about growing up, and let's see, do you guys believe Will Levis is ready to grow up? We drinking mayo and coffee still?
Give me the information on Levis.
Yeah, give me some background.
Let's stop talking crusty, gross running backs. Let's get into the fun, gross coffee. Will Levis is 809 in startups right now. Quarterback 24 off of the board.
Okay.
William Levis. 3, 2, 1, flip him. W's in the chat.
Easy buy. 809. 809. You're not allowed to use Drake references anymore. Only Kendrick from here on out.
I will use Drake references forever. Sorry.
That's a tough scene.
I think you're Kendrick.
6 God Standboy over here.
No, don't call him Kendrick. He is Drake.
No, but whatever he doesn't like, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
Am I going to yap here or no?
Please.
Okay. All right. I'm buying Will Levis because at QB 24, we know that Brian Callahan has come over, new head coach. We've seen that offense from Cincinnati be pass friendly, which is that going to benefit Will Levis? Maybe he's going to have to be a good quarterback, but it's going to have the opportunity to do that this year. They have also added Calvin Ridley, added some other weapons for him, Tony Pollard coming in as well. Like, I feel like they're going to figure out this year whether or not Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, and that's the plan for this coaching staff and this regime to come in and figure that out for them. So at QB 24, I feel like the miss on Will Levis, if you're drafting him at that price, it's not a big miss anyways. And if he does go up, it's such a great buy for you at that point.
That's what I mean. Like, you're drafting him at QB 24, 809. Like, the quarterbacks in that range are dudes that...
Here, I'll give you the quarterback going around him, just for clarity, right? So quarterback 23 is Baker, but that's a whole round ahead.
Okay.
And then the next quarterback off the board is actually Bo Nix, followed by Matt Stafford.
Okay.
Nix, Stafford, and Levis all are there?
Yeah,
Nix,
so it's Stafford, Nix, Levis, and then a whole round of prior.
With Levis,
Baker.
it's like you're going to be going around a lot of those veteran QBs who probably don't have that much longer in the league. Even if Levis flops, it's like Stafford will give you a good year. I'm thinking about like the Russ types, like guys in that range where it's like maybe they give you 1 year. It's like also maybe Will Levis gives you 1 year. The problem is if those guys give you 1 year, they're still just as likely to retire as they are to keep playing. Where Will Levis, if he gives you a good year, he goes from QB 24 to QB 14.
Yeah.
You know, I think the upside is real. They're clearly like really building around him. And it might be one of those things where it's like we just want to build the offense up for whoever the quarterback is, but he's going to have every opportunity to succeed, right? They bring in Calvin Ridley on the big contract. They've also used their top 10 picks on linemen in back-to-back seasons to rebuild that line. So it's like he's got the pieces in place now for him to like really take the next step if he's going to be that guy. That's the perfect price point for him.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in this year's class that was so quarterback heavy, we talked about how talented it was. There was never rumblings about Tennessee moving on from Levis and going with their new guy. So it seemed like they've been very
committed to him right away
throughout the whole time. So I feel confident in buying him at this price. Like we said, the payout for him succeeding is going to be so much bigger than what it would be to.
It's one of those weird cases where it feels like dynasty prices usually factor in the upside of a player. And I guess this might be going back to that conversation we had last time where it's like his trade price is definitely different than his startup price.
For sure.
You get him at 809, but then like you try to trade whatever the rookie value pick of an 809 is for Will Levis, and people aren't giving him up like that.
Yeah.
No, and I think interesting you guys are both biased. I think you made a lot of the points already. I think one thing that's underlooked too is that they're going to pass a lot more. They brought over Ridley, but then they also they didn't not just draft a quarterback, they drafted O-line, J.C. Latham, to put more around him protection-wise. So Andrew made a point that
Imagine
I think
thinking I didn't bring that point up. That's crazy.
You clearly could tell I wasn't
You
listening.
gotta lock the fuck
I
up.
wasn't listening to you at all.
Yeah. I'm not listening
Zero.
to you anymore.
That's fair.
I'm gonna listen to
Andrew,
some
I'm talking
Kendrick.
to your ass. So basically, though, I think the magic thing for him is if he plays well, given that they have put so much around him, he does have a lot more probably to gain than to lose. If he really struggles, he could go to 0, but you're not using a top 7 startup round pick on him. So yeah, there's definitely to lose. I think you're going to know at the end of this year, is Will Levis the future or not? But if he does hit, tell me that right now he doesn't at minimum get to where JJ's going in round 5, in round 4, if he actually looks good. The other thing, too, is the quarterback market has changed so much where you didn't used to be able to get quarterback 24 in the 8th round. So right now, actually, if you go get one high-end asset at quarterback, you can wait and get decent options with upside still later on.
There's also a world where, like, Levis doesn't boom, but he also is not terrible, where they're like, okay, we're still kind of in the middle ground where it's like, let's give him another year and build around him again, where maybe he throws for, like, 3,700 yards, 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. You're like, okay, let's kind of like buy in and just see what he becomes. Kind of like he's not terrible enough that we need to move on from him.
Right, he's inconsistent, but he's shown enough promise.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's a world where that happens.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I had a point that I was gonna say, but I can't remember where I was gonna go with it. But it's to the point of buying Will Levis, so that's where I say.
I get behind it. Why don't you since you can't yap, tell us who to yap about.
Yeah.
Let me get that board too.
Yeah, take this board from me.
See how mature that was.
Yeah.
See how mature that was. He just simply handed it to you.
See how mature I asked him for it.
I'm going to give you guys my first candidate. It's probably a very popular player in Dynasty circles being talked about right now. It's Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. 24 years old. His KTC value right now has fallen 17 spots.
You know what's crazy is like we're filming this on Thursday,
It'll be so
May
different.
9th, maybe. Yeah, May 9th. This goes live Monday, May 14th.
Yeah.
I almost feel like we could bake another 10 spots into that minimum.
It's fallen 17 spots since May 7th.
Where is he right now?
Wide receiver.
Since May 7th.
Yeah, so
that's 2 days ago.
2 days ago, he's fallen 17 spots.
Okay.
Wide receiver 50 on keep trade cut right now.
Stop it.
His startup value, though, has not changed that much.
That's because to that point, like when you look at startup ADP, it's not reflective enough.
It's not very
because it's
reactive.
ADP in way too many drafts before.
Yeah.
Right?
So in startups, the average ADP is wide receiver 25 in the 6th round. I will tell you, I did just draft him about 4 minutes before that new article came out. I clicked draft on Rashee Rice.
Wait, so what's his ranking on Keep Trade Cut?
Wide receiver 50.
Right, but like overall.
Oh.
That also is like what round?
Steep. It's going to be 11.
Let's see.
Because if you think about it, Keep Trade Cut is the trade value that we talk about, while the startup ADP, like they're going to be two different values. They're two different markets.
Like JMO 11 is 11th round around wide receiver 50 on startups, but we'll see what overall is here.
127. He's the 127th player off the board.
Right. So based on that, you're talking about 11th round in Keep Trade Cut.
The value, if you want to know some value adjacent players that are going around him at the wide receiver position, the 3 above him, Jamison Williams, Romeo Doubs, Calvin Ridley. The 3 below him, Josh Downs, Keenan Allen, Jalen Polk.
What an interesting group of players.
Say the first 3 again.
Jamison Williams, Romeo Doubs, Calvin Ridley.
Okay.
He's being thrown in that Najee Harris, Blake Corum, Evan Engram type of tier for the overall players. But yeah, wide receiver 50. Are we buying, selling, holding? 1, 2, 3. Show us.
Yeah.
Oh, Nick.
That's an easy. I was writing down all the numbers that you were spewing out at first, but yeah, we're easy buy on that one.
Okay. Talk to me about this, because I think a lot of people are nervous about Rashee right now.
I mean, at that value, I actually think we should probably talk about it from like the startup value, because that's probably more realistic.
Here's what I would say. If we go with the startup in the 6th, I'm not doing it. I will say, I understand you're young, you want to do crazy stuff, but you got a bunch of money, you've never been in the situation before. But if you're, it's like if you get grounded and you sneak out immediately after, like there's a problem to be had. You clearly are not growing. You want to talk about mature.
The trend,
the mature is not a problem.
You should have a talk with them, or maybe I should have a talk with both of you.
I'll have a talk with. I'm gonna sit y'all down and take care of this. All right. But the buy is based on. I understand that he is like I worry about what his long-term future in the NFL is going to be if you're this immature while problems are surrounding you. But you're still attached to Patrick Mahomes. I'm willing to buy at a certain price, which is. To me, JMO, even if he has no problems off the field, I don't think there's any upside there because he's in an offense that's already has a bunch of pass catchers.
Did he get suspended?
JMO?
First 4 games last year?
Yeah, Jameson Williams, gambling.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I gotta have a talk all 3 of them.
Seriously.
You, Rashee, Jameson in one room together?
You bringing out the Bets channel? Come on, chill.
You should have Jameson
Calvin,
Williams on the Bets channel.
Jeez.
But Rashee Rice, though, like while I definitely worry about this, when we get to the 11th round or wide receiver 40 even, I'm buying.
Sure.
Now, if we're talking about the 6th round, like his old price, top 30 wide receiver, I think I'd sell there because there's enough safer options around there that still have upside.
Now, that price was, we said old price. That was 2 days ago. Like I said, I was on the clock 2 days ago before that news article came out. And when I tell you I picked him 5 minutes before the news broke.
What spot was that?
Right there. I took him at the 608.
Yeah,
okay, so 608 before the news. If he ends up dropping, if I'm getting him at like the 708, the 712, the 81, I'm taking that pick every day.
So immediately after that news broke, obviously people started talking about it because he had just been selected. And so I got people who were offering me like their 8th, their 9th round startup pick that were like, if you want to take that back, I'll give you my 8th round, my 9th round startup pick.
Dub.
I was like, I'm good, man. I already
sunk the cost in,
so like I'm just taking it. So
well, Rashee, I mean, I guess the things that concern me a little bit.
I'm just taking it. That's pause.
For what it is, I'll take it for what it is.
Rashee, yeah, I mean, it's concerning that these both things happen like back to back within like a month period. You're like, okay, it's a trend. You're young. The suspension, I mean, you got to think about that. If he gets an 8 game, they're saying it's probably a minimum 8 game. Maybe if they stack both of them on, they're like 12 games, something like that. That's fucking problematic for fantasy.
It's Dynasty though.
I'm a little less concerned with a young wide receiver, like, because if this was a running back, he's pretty much off my board because the momentum for a running back's career is everything.
You lose that 1 year.
You use 1 year, you're like, you're not, you just lost your shot at being a running, because their lifeline for the most part is like 2 to 3 years to peak anyways. You use a whole year, the chances of you now being reinstated as they move on from you, right?
Sure.
Whereas wide receivers, I think it's a little bit more delicate. And like, even if you come back as the 2, you're still on the field for 85% of the snaps. So it's like you have more leeway that way. So I feel like Rashee Rice showed us that he was talented enough. Patrick Mahomes obviously had a real chemistry with him. So Mahomes is going to fight probably tooth and nail to have him on the field.
And you've mentioned it also by the time that this comes out, this could have further developed and do something differently. So like there's still going to be new information that keeps coming out. Some of it could come out positively for Rashee. Some could be negatively. Like, there's still so much going to be developing over it that I feel like
He's just so young that I'm fine. Like, if he keeps dipping in price, I'm good taking him.
I think especially, I mean, now that we've seen that extra dip, like I said, those 17 spots, at that price, like, I was already considering buying him. Obviously, I drafted him with the racing stuff at 608. I'm definitely trading for Rashee at that price in Dynasty leagues.
But the reason I think the buy ends up being what I put is the startup is just a way to pulse in all things being equal, like where people are at.
Yeah.
The reason I say buy is that keep trade cut is a perfect example that's indicative of how people's level of panic is. That is outrageous panic.
Yeah.
17 spots in 2 days means you would think this guy tore a limb, like something happened.
They cut his foot off, bro.
Like that to me, the reason it's buy is because I don't have current investment in Rashee Rice, and I'm gonna go try to buy low.
Yeah.
That to me makes a ton of sense because now my level of investment's low enough to where if it burns, oh well.
Yeah, and the reason why I picked him was because on Keep Trade Cut, you can see like the top 5 risers and fallers. He is the #1 faller in Dynasty over the last 30 days.
Sure.
And I'm sure if you looked at the last 24 hours, he is also the largest faller. So
Yeah, there hasn't been a single like positive piece of news. Like the Chiefs haven't come out said nothing. He hasn't said anything. Like we haven't heard anything good.
Is the fact that the Chiefs haven't said anything, is that somewhat positive though?
I'd say neutral.
Because I would.
It feels like they're just gathering information right now. If they don't have much,
They want to see. They want to have more information before they come make a statement. Probably. I was actually curious. So last thing before we pivot to the next player, buy and sell on this. If you're in the market to buy Rashee Rice, what would you send in this 24 class rookie wise to go get Rashee Rice? Where you're like, yeah, I'll buy there. Let's see how real we are about buy and sell.
You do Dynasty trade shows on your channel. I've done some on mine. We've done some on here. We've seen Rashee before this newest piece of news getting traded for like very low prices.
Like what was that?
I saw him being traded for like 210. Like
what
stuff like that. I had a trade submitted in my Discord where somebody bought Rashee Rice for the 301 and the 303. Like they put
that feels unserious.
And it feels unserious, but people who have Rashee Rice, some of them.
Oh, you mean like right now?
No. That was like during the racing stuff, like the day or 2 days after the racing.
Okay, but post it's something bad happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was after that, and so like people are panicked about Rashee.
After that news broke, in Fetal, I sent to I think it was Jordan. I sent an offer for Rashee Rice for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And he immediately shut it down. I'm like, you're not going to get a better offer than this.
But there's some people who are like, I have Rashee on my team, and I don't want anything to do with this. Like, this is a headache. I'll just cash out while I can, whatever it takes. People do that.
What do you think Rashee's pre-racing rookie price based on what we know now? You think he goes like right at like the Brock Bowers tier?
I think he's probably. I think he's not. I think you won't trade 108. I think you'll have a discussion at 109 and later. If everything was still fine with
it's like McCarthy goes 7, Brock goes 8, and then it's like Rashee, right?
Yeah, because now you're in that tier with the other guys like Ladd and those guys. You can make the pivot there.
Yeah. I would agree. Okay. I think a late first for him pre.
And let's say you had a rookie draft tomorrow. It was only rookies in the pool, but Rashee Rice was thrown in the pool. Yeah. Where are you taking him?
Honestly, I'm still probably taking him.
It's probably the same for me, honestly. I don't know that it...
Really? Are you taking him?
Like the 110, 111.
Really? Nah, yeah. I wouldn't do that.
I think I'm taking Ladd. I'm taking Worthy, maybe Keon over him. But after that tier, like, what is that, 2, 3?
So,
2, 3.
Yeah, I was going to say...
2, 3, 2, 4 is easy for me, for sure.
Yeah. To me...
maybe the 112.
To me, where I would put him at is like... So, I'm going to take Keon, Ladd, Xavier Worthy, those guys ahead... But I would definitely take Rashee there ahead of Adonai, ahead of Pearsall. That group there feels about right.
So you have Rashee over, or you have Xavier Worthy over Rashee now?
Now because of just I also bake in a lot of where I will take guys is I like to trade a shit ton. So to me, I know Rashee Rice feels like I'm making a dead weight investment, meaning I have to hold until things become more stable before I can actually move. Where I like the fluidity of someone gets excited about Xavier Worthy. That's why I'll take him there.
It could be 12 to 24 months before that stabilizes for Rashee, because I've even seen reports of maybe he's not even suspended in 2024. Maybe it's 2025 that he gets the suspension, because that's when the whole legal process pans out. This could be a long process for people to figure out what happens with Rashee.
That would be a good thing, though, if he played all next year.
It would be a great thing.
Because then he's probably going to dominate, and even though the suspension's coming, you're like,
and you're more comfortable with him long term,
That's the best case scenario. That's what I would.
Where would you put it? Put the cards out there, Mr. Mature. Where would you take him? What did you say?
I started the conversation. I was the one who said it first.
You still take it the first round?
I would say like the 111, 112. I don't feel that much more confident in like Keon or Xavier Worthy over Rashee Rice. I would take Rashee Rice over Worthy straight up, yeah.
Would you take Rashee ahead of, so you said over Keon, over Worthy. What about Ladd?
I have Ladd ranked above those guys, my rookie. So I think it's probably that tier where it's like Ladd and then it goes to Rashee for me.
Do you have Brian Thomas then ahead of Ladd?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that startup,
that's fair.
Rice and Worthy, they were back-to-back. I took Rice, the news happened, then Worthy went right after.
Okay,
so,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're all there. And now let me ask you this. If you have him, what would you take in a trade back? Like, what does someone have to send you for you to be like, all right, I'll pivot off of Rashee? This is where I think it's also you have to find the right person. I doubt any of us are actually selling Rashee realistically.
Well, that's the reality. I have him on my roster, and I feel like right now he is dead stuck in that roster until somebody comes with a late first-round pick. And at that point, nobody's coming with that
That's
pick.
fucking insane that Rashee's the wide receiver 50 on Keep Trade Cut.
Yeah.
That's
like, what kind of fucking...
It's panic. That means everybody that clicks there is like, I don't want Rashee.
That's so not like realistic relative to the way the market works right now. You'll never be able to buy him for that price.
I mean, I think I would say not never, but I think it's rare scenarios of panic sell, true panic sell, right?
But I think the way that Keep Trade Cut is set up, and this is where some people have the issue with Keep Trade Cut, but when you put up 3 players and you say Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., and Rashee Rice, Keep Trade Cut, nobody's taking Rice knowing the legal situation and then having the upside of the rookies. Nobody's doing that. So he's going to continue to get pushed down over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, it's fair.
Overreactions.
Definitely an overreaction. All right, let's get back to some crusty running backs.
Do it.
But overreactions are a great point for buys.
Buys and thighs.
And
a running back going even lower than David Montgomery. We have Brian Robinson. He's picked 137, running back 29 right now. So you're talking about double-digit rounds, 11th roundish. I mean, he's coming off a breakout year, I would say. They get rid of Antonio Gibson, which has been a thorn in his side, but they do add
Eckler.
Mr. Austin Eckler.
But like overall, I think you have to think that the team's going to be better with Jaden Daniels there instead of Sam Howell, right? And this is going to be a team that
better be.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to try to score a lot of fucking points because their defense is going to give up a lot of points. But I feel like he's coming off a pretty good year. Played in 15 games, 178 carries. So you're talking about double-digit touches per game. Also, 43 targets, 368 receiving yards. So that's over 10 yards per reception, 4 receiving touchdowns. He was good in the passing game. That last year at Alabama, too, he caught like 40 passes. And I think people thought it was a product of a system. I think he's just a good pass catcher. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit like null and void now that Eckler's there, probably. Maybe Eckler's out of steam, but like...
Washington was the league leader in passing attempts last year, so that probably comes down a tiny bit.
Maybe.
I don't know, maybe.
I don't think that's a lock, but it could be.
I mean, it's because their defense was so fucking bad.
Sure.
So one more time, what round was he in again, you said?
He's pick 137, so I think you're...
he is currently the...
Like 11th or 12th
1106.
Yeah, or in that area. It was his second year in the league, you know? He came in a little old, so he's still 25 years old, I think. Don't look at his fucking board, Andrew. I saw that.
Man,
I saw you fucking
last time we played this game, I said Andrew was a cheater in school, and damn it, why you did?
Sorry, teacher.
I promise there's nothing that exciting on my board, and you copied the fuck out of it.
Well, the funny thing is...
He just turned 25.
The funny thing is, I was going to write that, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't do it by myself.
What do we got?
Old.
He didn't have the conviction to hold by himself. I mean,
well, no, here's the thing. I'm going to sound like a broken drum because it's the same thing with David Montgomery, but he feels like a running back that you add in a hero RB or a zero RB build, and he has the upside to give you, a safe floor and give you the upside for touchdowns and things like that. But, like, he's not a player that I feel like you're excited to go out and get. He's not a player that I'm really looking to add to rosters that don't have major needs at running back. So, for me, I'm not typically buying, and maybe this is also part of my bias to where, like, most of the time I'm not really looking to buy running backs anyways unless I'm getting a discount. And maybe this is a slight discount in the trade market like we've talked about with the David Montgomery, but in the startup it feels like it's a normal price.
To me, I think the difference with my buy and hold, Andrew's just hold. He wants to buy no running backs. But the difference for me is in a startup, he goes a little later. But the reality is if I go to the buyer of Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Najee Harris, they all probably want the same thing.
You think? I feel like Brian Robinson is definitely lower value than those guys.
While I would agree with that in sentiment, I don't think someone's coming off of Brian Robinson for significantly or any less actually. So I guess what I'm saying is I probably, for what I would be willing to send for Brian Robinson if I actually was going to secure him, let's call that a late second or something, I probably can get another running back that I'd prefer. Okay. That's the reason I say hold, is because if I have him, probably can't sell him. You probably have to use him. But if I was to go buy, I probably can buy 4, 5, 6 running backs that I prefer slightly for the same price. That's the difference.
What were the 3 running backs you mentioned? You said Najee Harris, Brian Robinson.
I'd prefer Najee. I'd prefer
Demont.
And
I think that's the sentiment. Like I think in order to get Demont or Najee,
I think you're right because in this,
I think you have to give up like a 205, 206 to get those guys. Where I think Brian Robinson, you're probably in the 210, 211 range, and that's a big gap.
Brian Robinson went 2 rounds later than both of those guys you mentioned in the startup that I'm in right now. So,
well, I agree. That's why I say in the startup, it's obviously reflective of that, but. Like, go look at what the trade says or trade market is. It's probably not really that much different. The reason I say that, too, is with Brian Robinson in particular, I agree that I expect him to be the 1A. I expect him to get a lot of touches. I think Jaden Daniels running might take away from workload of other running backs.
That's probably the biggest thing for, like, bringing in Austin Eckler. His value is just, like, shot with a running quarterback.
Right. Well, that's where it's like, okay, you got Jaden Daniels who's probably going to take away some rushes. And then with the bringing in Eckler, I imagine that pass catching work from Robinson comes down some. So it's like he's not going to catch a lot of passes. Rushing upside can go away because of Jaden Daniels. There's not enough stability for what I can project to want to confidently buy as well.
Offensive line is going to compete for one of the worst in the NFL this year, I think. I feel like there's enough negatives. There's small negatives, but enough of them that add together to make a little bit of pause, I think, on Brian Robinson.
That's fair. Yeah, I owned him in a lot of places last year, so I actually kind of look at him fondly because he did well for like the investment that you put into it.
Last year for sure.
Yeah, and now I'm looking at him, I'm like, no one really likes this dude, but I feel like he performed pretty well.
I actually feel very similarly to Rachaad White, and now Rachaad White, he's being valued a lot higher than Brian Robinson, but I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't really want Rachaad White.
I was thinking about putting him as my honorable mention for this video. I agree. I just offered, someone was on the clock at the 201, and I offered him Rachaad White for the 201, and he told me that was wild. I'm like, brother, he was the RB4 in PPR last year, and all they did was bring in a 190-pound running back.
Yeah.
So
that's slow.
I agree. Like the thing is with Rachaad White, I feel like he's just proven not to be a good runner. And I feel like if you're not a good runner of the football, people equate that with being like, you're probably not going to be a longevity play in this league. Like he's a good pass catcher for sure, but
this is going to be a hot take, but Alvin Kamara, he hasn't been good at running the football in 2 years, and he's still been a dominant player for our fantasy
right. But
team.
he was great, and like, yeah, fair. And you need to make sure he has that pass catching role. So I think,
but Rachaad has had that.
But Kamara was always good at running prior to the last couple of years.
The last
That's
2 years,
why
he's been pretty bad at.
White's been
this.
Yeah, but White's been bad for last 2 years on the ground. Yeah, like he can't run the ball for shit, but he's a great athlete. He catches a lot of passes. But yeah,
I watched Alvin Kamara put 6 touchdowns on my Vikings on Christmas. So anytime I can take a dig at Alvin Kamara, I got to do it.
I feel you.
All right,
you got.
We haven't been back together. They got the band back together since Andrew's big happy day.
Ooh.
So let's talk about it. JJ McCarthy, 504, quarterback 12 in startups.
What?
What?
How does that make sense?
Well, let me double check. Make sure I didn't.
I'm sorry. What? Quarterback 12?
Maybe I'm dyslexic.
Yeah, that can't be right.
19. I definitely miswrote that. They're a little different.
Like you're getting the 12 quarterback in the fucking 5th round.
Yeah, it looked wrong as soon as I read it, but
you guys know my answer without having to look.
So
at
quarterback
my board.
19, 504. I apologize.
12 was insane. At 12,
can you give me?
Yeah,
can you give me the 2 QBs ahead of him and the 2 QBs after him?
Yep, we'll do that again. So let's go with all right. So quarterbacks at quarterback 19, he's the 504. We have just in front of him, Jared Goff by a hair, as well as Drake May by a hair, and then Tua there's a big gap then before you get to Tua.
Okay.
After him, there is a massive drop off. So there's almost no quarterbacks in the rest in the 5th, all the way to the 6-12, which is Bryce Young at quarterback 20.
Okay.
So it's like McCarthy right now. That's the reason I put him is it's basically there's those 19 quarterbacks, which not 12 for the record. In the 5th round, people are kind of still aggressively targeting quarterbacks, and then it's like, all right, chill, shawty. We're not feeling any of these guys after.
That makes sense though. I think that gap. Yeah, I'm trying to.
I think I'm gonna change this a little bit.
Andrew is not confident in his quarterback or his board.
No, I lean 2 different ways.
Me too. The players, the value said one thing, but then the players you listed said something a little bit different to me.
Interesting.
You guys?
Yeah. This is no.
We got hold, buy, sell all on
hold
it together.
/buy.
Yeah.
Is that the 2 you were between?
Yes.
Okay, because
explain.
Go ahead.
The 4 to 5 turn is literally where every rookie that people are unsure about go in dynasty startups. Like I can name you every rookie where it goes like
so 4 or 5
Zach
turn
Wilson
right now, right?
If the sentiment around the market says oh, he's drafted highly, but we're not sure if he's talented. They go at the 4.12, the 5.1, and every year of startups, it's the same fucking thing. So then,
do you know who the quarterback or what players are going at the 4-5 turn this year?
I have no idea.
You?
You're going to tell me?
Well, you just named them.
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you. But, it's Drake May, Brock Bowers, J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah.
They're at the 4.11 to 5.04.
Okay.
When you said Tua, that made me say that
Tua
is a buy.
Oh, got it.
No, Tua at QB 20.
No, Tua is at quarterback right? 16. He's the other way. He's like late.
Oh.
He's the top. So it's Tua, and then there's a decent gap. So he's like 3.11, 4.02.
Oh, I read that very wrong. No. I thought Tua was after him.
He was going down.
And I was like, yeah.
So, no, Tua is in like the last of that tier. And then it's May, Goff, McCarthy, and then there's a fall off to Bryce Young.
Okay, I thought Tua was in between that fall off. I was like, that's fucking insane.
Tua's like the last of that Dak, Purdy, Tua.
Okay, I'm gonna go hold there just because I feel like that's where those quarterbacks go in startups. I don't have a ton of conviction in JJ McCarthy, but I'm fine kind of spending the dollar there if I feel like I need a QB.
I did the hold/buy because originally I wrote buy, but then when you started listing the quarterbacks, I was like, maybe I don't want to buy him over some of the guys above him.
Right.
So the reason why I went with the hold and buy is because I originally had wrote buy, and so I felt like he was worth the price and it was going to increase at the startup pick. But then you started listing the quarterbacks with him, and I felt maybe I wouldn't take J.J. McCarthy over those guys in a startup draft. So I think he's a hold and a buy kind of in that range, because if you do have conviction in J.J. McCarthy, if you do believe in the landing spot and Coach Kevin O'Connell and everything that is there for him to be successful, I think there's definitely a pathway for him to increase in value from where he's at. So I would want to buy if I'm believing that he's going to increase right there. But based on the quarterbacks around him, it feels appropriate right now in that startup draft. So that's kind of why I went with the hold and the buy, but I do believe he is going to be valued probably higher than that going into next year.
Fair. So let me ask you then, you have hold, you have buy and hold.
Well, on here's the like on Keep Trade Cut right now, Tua is the 16, Dak is the 17, J.J. McCarthy's 18. They are picks 46, 47, 48. Yeah. So if you're telling me I get to choose between McCarthy, Dak, and Tua, even though they're 3 picks apart, he's a sell for me then. If I can do those straight up and add like a fucking late second or early third, I'm going to take the veterans easily.
I would agree with that. Now, to at least startup ADP is reflective that there's a difference there, but I was just going to ask, if you were to buy, like if you're going to the market trying to buy J.J. McCarthy right now, what's your level of comfort? Let's call it in either future picks or skill players you prefer to trade for a quarterback into in Superflex. What does that look like? What would you actually be willing to pay for a J.J. McCarthy if you were on that buy? Andrew, you can start since you had buy.
He feels like one of those players that's like his upside is going to be like way too factored into the trade market for me.
But I would pay a decent amount. Like when you said that, my mind was like, would I give 2.25 first to go get J.J. McCarthy? And I think I could talk myself into that with the need on my roster being quarterback. But I'd probably would have no issues going first and second next year. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a guy like Baker Mayfield and a future first. I probably would do that to get McCarthy. Like I feel like I would bake into the upside of that as well into my trade market, and I'd be willing to pay up for it.
See, that's I think an owner would do that trade. Like if you offered that to him, I think 25 first is way too rich for me because it's not like JJ is like the 1.7, 1.8. So it's like, oh, would you pay 2 first next year for the 1.08 this year? It's like I'm probably not doing that. I get what you're saying though. Like you're convicted on the player, so it's like send that offer. I don't think I'm there with him.
It also probably speaks to this class where like J.J. McCarthy probably in most years isn't going at 1.08 as well.
Maybe. Yeah.
Now to the point.
Yeah, because I think if we had that conversation, like if he is in next year's class, I think a lot of people thought originally that McCarthy wasn't coming out, and he was almost kind of penciled in as the guy to compete for that QB1 next year.
Sure. What's crazy too is like ADP right now, there's 105 to 108. You could see any order of those players going. I've seen Brock go there. I've seen Rome go there. I've seen May go there, and I've seen McCarthy go there at 105. Yeah. So really, the 105 to 108 is kind of like a jumble tier of who you prefer at that spot.
I saw McCarthy. The highest I saw him go in one of my leagues was 104.
104?
104.
So that means over Neighbors, right? Or over Jaden.
He went over Jaden, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's banana land.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wasn't even a Vikings fan.
Yeah. That was going to be my immediate reaction. Like you're in a league with just Vikings fans.
So you're saying on the high end, Baker in a first or two 25s, but you're saying you're confidently buy like a 25 first and second.
But I also think on the flip side of that, there are probably drafts where he goes at like the 110, 111.
Probably.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, maybe. I mean, the one I've been seeing getting like absolutely faded is Drake May. Drake May's been getting faded.
I've seen
in
that
all
too.
my rookie
I haven't
drafts.
seen him go past the 1.6.
So
I've seen
that
him
would
go
be
like
like
1.9.
there
crazy.
you'd be seeing probably either Brian Thomas or both Xavier Worthy ahead, and then he comes off, right?
It's for what?
If he goes at the 110.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I'm saying I also haven't seen him go at the 1.3, 1.4, 1.5.
No.
Like
I've
in
seen him
every
go at the
draft I've
1.5.
done, he's the 107 or 108 every single time.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's always been there.
McCarthy?
McCarthy, 1.7, 1.8. So I think one other player goes above him, or two other players go above him, or something. I think you could easily see it because just as weird as it is for me to hear that he goes before Jaden Daniels, I think
That's crazy.
on the flip side, it
What
probably
would
happens.
you now if you had him in the market? You guys put hold, obviously. What would someone have to send you to actually sell? Since right now we're saying hold.
If I have JJ,
Yeah. What does someone have to give you in a trade? What would that look like?
I
for you
think
to
I would
actually
accept
sell?
those trades that he sent me, that he was just saying.
First and a second?
Not that
I think
one.
that
That one I said I'm definitely doing, but
the Baker in the first is something I'm definitely interested in. It would also have to see what your first, like what I think your first looks like next year. If it's early, then I might pull the trigger on that.
if it's late, no.
Probably not.
See, I think that's where like the 225s, given the quarterback class next year, and if they project late, while that sounds like crazy,
That's
I don't.
why I
That,
say
that's
it.
hard, that's tougher to take. You give me Baker and a first. I got a quarterback contract, so I still get to solve that position, and I get a first. That for me in process, I couldn't say no to.
Yeah.
To 225s, I might be a little more selective, and a first and a second, I might just tell you to piss off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if somebody does
I'm not saying. I'm just saying for me, that's where I'm at.
I was gonna say the 2 seconds I start thinking about selling my McCarthy to you.
The two what?
At the 2 I said 2 seconds, didn't I?
Two first, yeah.
Two
Gotcha.
first, I start considering selling it, and it gets to your point where are you a good team or are you a bad team? If you're a bad team, and I think one of these is going to land in the top 5,
I think
might
if I have
do it.
McCarthy and someone offers me 2 first next year, I'm taking
Taking
that.
it.
Yeah,
That's probably fair too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who next?
it's me.
it's the last one.
Last joint.
Last
get
one.
it.
Last John.
Okay, here we go. Candidate number 2 for me is going to be the Atlanta quarterback, Kirk Cousins, not Michael Penix. Kirk Cousins is 35.7 years old. His KTC value has fallen 3 spots since the NFL draft. He is now quarterback 26.
Okay.
His startup is quarterback 22, being drafted in the late 7th round of startups. How are we feeling about Kirk Cousins right now?
Not great.
How do we
And this almost enters a Penix conversation as well.
how do we spell sell?
SELL. Nikki?
Nicky Clicky is hesitant.
We're
Fuck it.
selling Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Bye.
I think since the initial reaction is kind of worn down to the Penix pick, it's more an overwhelming feeling of like, we talked about it. It's like they clearly make that pick because they have Michael Penix as the number 2 prospect on their board. They came out and said such yesterday or 2 days ago. I saw. Makes sense. It's like it's not if, it's when with Michael Penix, and it's likely sooner rather than later. Even if
Right.
that is 2 years, I almost feel like 2 years is probably actually the max at this point. With Kirk, though, he's old already, so it's like kind of hard to project into the future. I think if he plays well, he could also still get a job
I
elsewhere.
think he could have, 4 more years until he's 40?
Yeah, I don't want to push the gun there. Like, I know we're getting used to quarterbacks playing until they're older, but I don't want to project the fact that Kirk's playing until he's 40 into like what I think is actually going to happen.
Okay.
So the more I look at it is like, all right, maybe we get 2 more good years of production, 1 mediocre year, and that's probably in a new team, maybe. Almost maybe similar to how Derek Carr's been the last 3 years, where it's like, not last year is pretty bad, but like 2 years prior, you're like, okay, he's fine. It's like a QB2 in Superflex. Last year, you're like, all right, his end is probably coming to a near soon, So it's like, I'm not
That's how you felt last year watching him?
Carr.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Kirk.
No, Carr.
Okay, I was like, Kirk was really good last
Kirk was great last year. Yeah, I'm just not someone who tends to buy into old injured players.
Yeah.
I
That
get
makes
that
sense.
QB's less like intense, but
year. You want to know the quarterbacks right around him?
Yes.
We have the 3 above him are going to be Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Michael Penix. The 3 below
so Penix
him,
is over him now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 3 below him are Matt Stafford, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones.
It's Fields. Fields, I feel like still is gonna keep in ADP. You're gonna see it keep going down because it's just you can't catch
Yeah,
up.
Fields,
you
I'm
can't,
off
You can't
of.
catch up on
I think
the
I would-
ADP from the 3rd to where he's probably going now.
I think I would take all those guys above
Everybody
him,
else you
besides
said,
those
though.
last 2 guys you named.
Daniel
You
Jones,
take all of them over him.
Yeah.
like Daniel Jones, while it's super gross, like what did they just do? They just didn't take a QB at 6, right? Like, yeah, Kirk Cousins is a big sell to me. I think he could end up playing to, you guys talked about 40, but I think what happened there is Atlanta didn't know for sure what they were going to have in the draft, but they wanted to draft a quarterback, and they did what was necessary to just, we're going to have to give Kirk an unreasonable amount of money over the next 2 years, but we have to make sure that that's locked in case we don't get a quarterback in this draft. Yeah. And you start looking at it in hindsight, and you're like, dang, Kirk and the agent, they got him 90 mil, but like they might have low-key just got played thinking, I'm going to sign here, given I'm going to play for a while with Drake London, Kyle Pitts. The situation's great. You're going to be going back to the market in 2 years probably.
Sorry, Kirk. I don't feel bad. You've been playing Minnesota for every dollar they own for the last 25
To me, he's a pretty the only problem with why it's hard to actually say sell is I feel like that stink or that sentiment's becoming more clear where it's like, if I have Kirk, can I actually even sell him?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
I actually, because of that sentiment, I feel like I kind of am buying Kirk Cousins. Because I feel like I can get him for such a cheap price.
Like, what would it look like?
What would you have to give to get Kirk?
Or what would you? I'm saying for your buy. I like the call. What would you pay?
I'll give you any second you want to get Kirk Cousins on my roster.
201 right now.
I'll give you 201 to get Kirk Cousins
on a
team that needs a. I don't care. I'd rather have Kirk Cousins for 2 years.
So you got Kirk ahead of Penix in your ranks?
Yeah, I would.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'd probably not by far, but like I think the next 2 years of production, assuming he is healthy, and that's the gamble that you're making, is he's going to give you low-end quarterback 1 numbers probably in Atlanta. That's what he was doing for Minnesota. He was giving you low-end QB 1 numbers, high-end QB 2 numbers. If I can buy that on my roster for 2 years for a second-round pick, hell yes, give me that all day long. Like I have him on a roster right now. I was telling you about that team that I have all those quarterbacks because I just kind of hoarded them in the rookie draft.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins feels like one of the guys on that team that like I just won't sell because people are low on him, and I feel like he's going to outproduce every young guy on my bench right now that plays quarterback.
So the 201 is like probably that spot where I think I would make this trade on the clock, where I wouldn't do it raw for the 201 because if you get shafted and you get the 201, it's only wide receivers left, I would take Kirk. But if I'm 201 on the clock and Penix or Bo Nix are there, then I'm making that move where it's like, all right, give me the 201. I'll give you Kirk. I'll take a young quarterback. That's where I would do it. But those guys go earlier, and then I'm deciding between like Keon Ladd, Xavier Worthy. Give me Kirk there.
Yeah, but it's going to come down to the direction of your team and what kind of phase your roster is in your roster construction. But
the perfect rebuild piece.
I'm thinking from a standpoint, yeah, Kirk Cousins perfect rebuild. I think from the standpoint of, hey, I play in a super flex league and we know how valuable those QBs are. If I can buy Kirk Cousins for 2 years of production right now for this second and I'm a contending team, I'm doing it.
Okay. I think for me, the reason I struggle with that is I'm trying to convince somebody that they're going to get 2 full years when that's the 100% of the battery, you know?
Adam makes a full 40-minute video about how Kirk Cousins not going to have 2 full years. Adam needs to convince someone that he's about to have 2 full years.
Exactly. Yeah, y'all didn't see that.
Yeah, that's the problem with making content.
I didn't make that video, so I'm okay.
Man, what's crazy is I have not been a part of a draft or seen anyone link me a board, which has been a significant amount of people asking questions, where he's been a first-round pick ever since I made that video. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've never seen him in the second since.
Yeah.
I'll show you one.
Gut just took him at the 112 in our Fade the Fetal.
I got him at 2-1. In a draft that I was in.
Okay.
Or wait, yeah, I got him at the 2-1. I traded up to get him at the 2-1 though. He wasn't falling any further.
I traded out of my 204. He was on the board at my 204. Now this was a 10-team league, so that was what 202.
202.
Yeah.
So I traded out of it. I got a 25 first for that pick, and somebody came up and got Penix.
Okay. Terrible move, but
yeah,
whatever.
I didn't.
Whatever, motherfucker. Now trade that 25 first for JJ McCarthy.
40.
Yeah.
It all works.
That was that's the league where I have Hurts and Kyler. So adding a guy like Penix wasn't super, and I have Baker on the bench. So
okay. All right, there you have it. Buy, sell, hold. We got through 6 players. Probably still ended up being 90 fucking minutes long. We just be yapping here.
We love y'all.
If you guys enjoy these videos, sorry if there was a cutout in the middle of it. The camera just kind of shut off because the fan was going. But I think you guys still had audio throughout. So we persevered. We pushed through. And if you want to see more of our videos, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the button that looks like this while you are down there, and join the Discord if you want to join some Dynasty Startup Leagues because we are organizing them for you. All right, we'll see you on Thursday. And while you're in the comment section, just let us know what kind of videos you want us to make for you.
Yell at us.
Hank.